Anthony Grassi for D2 Ticker here at the Women Leaders in Sports National Convention. Happy to sit down for another small college conversation with Deborah Rodgers, Deputy Chief Athletic Director, SWA and Compliance Director at Tuskegee University, and Candice Turner, Deputy AD and SWA at Wayne State University. Ladies, thank you for joining me.
No, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So the conversation we wanted to have today, I wanted to center around how you're charting your path forward in your career aspirations. So as we sit here right now, is your goal in your career, have you set and kind of been working towards becoming an athletic director?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So what do some of those intentional steps look like? Because it's not always easy to chart a path. I imagine some of that is network, some of that is coming to events like this. What are some of the intentional steps you guys have taken to work towards that process, or work towards that goal?
Well, I'll go first.
Okay.
For me, mine has been mentorship. That is something that I have been very intentional about over the past year and a half, even starting with Pathways. Prior to me getting into Pathways, I was in ADA, the Women Minorities Mentorship Program, which has developed other mentors just throughout my circle, my conference, and just networked out, coming to conventions like this, Pathways, Women Leaders, NCAA Convention, especially NACDA. NACDA offers a lot of that as well, joining into other organizations also. So definitely mentorship for me.
For me, I think the biggest thing is just understanding our industry. I've been at Wayne State for 16 years. I'm a huge person on making sure that you're knowledgeable. So obviously I have an earned PhD. I make sure I understand the landscape of college athletics. I have some intentional relationships that help me, grow that base of knowledge, and really just making sure that I'm making steps, not rooted in ego, but more or less how I can help our industry, our student athletes, really progress to be the best versions of themselves.
On those relationships you both have sought out, what have you looked for? Is it, how you fit with somebody? Is it the seat that they're in or they have been in? Is it their experiences that maybe some shared as yours? What are the kind of criteria, if there are any, that you look for when evaluating a mentor?
It's the fit for me, being relatable, but also making me vulnerable and feeling uncomfortable having those conversations that I don't like to have, putting me in spaces that I'm not comfortable being in, because I work in certain environments. I work at an HBCU institution, so I've never worked at an actual PWI. So I do like to reach out to those type of mentors at PWI institutions, such as presidents, ADs, because those are situations or environments that I have never been in. So I'm curious as to see what that does look like, so you just never know.
I think a lot of my mentors and the relationships that I have built in this industry came from someone else saying, I need you to meet Candice. I need you to meet this person. And I think for me, it has really shown that I align with individuals that are very transparent, authentic in what they're doing, more or less not always related to what's going on in the industry, right? It's, do we actually have some organic chemistry there? And I like to have a group of individuals. It's not ever been just one singular person that has helped me progress throughout my career. I went to Miami of Ohio, and my mentor there was our athletics director, Brad Bates. From there, he introduced me to Derek Grad. It was just, a ripple effect. And those individuals I still keep in touch with to this day. So I try to emulate those types of things of just being organic, natural relationships that build. I've never been a huge networker, so a lot of these institutions and things that I have been a part of, it's really me leaning into that gregarious side that I don't typically present as. I'm kind of the extroverted introvert. So, but yeah, it's just really authentic individuals. They're transparent, and someone that I've known maybe have made that connection for me.
Maybe earlier in both of your careers, what did it mean to have that first advocate kind of vouch for you, whether it was to make a connection or when you were going for a new job, kind of stepping out there and saying, hey, I'll put my name out there for this person? What does that mean maybe earlier in your career when you maybe question like, hey, am I cut out to
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know. I think for me it's very interesting. At the last Women Leaders Convention, Carla Ann Harris spoke. and she talked about moving beyond just someone advocating for you, but really being your sponsor and them using their social capital to elevate you. So when Brad did that for me, I was 18 when I met him. And the fact that he was talking about the work that I was doing as a student to people that are in the profession I just couldn't believe it, honestly. So I wanted to make sure that I was going to be that type of leader moving forward and build this network of individuals who are thriving to be the best versions of themselves in the profession, because it really changed the trajectory of my life. I was going to be a corporate lawyer. I was just working in the athletics department because he was my mentor. It was perfect. I was like, okay, I could do this. And it really changed the trajectory of my life. So
Tiffany Sykes is one of my mentors, and I remember she and I would have our conversations, just regular routine conversations over the phone. And one thing that stood out to me was she told me, she was like, advocate for yourself. She said, who can better tell your story than you? Who can tell it better than you? So that sat well with me and it resonated with me. And I remember it was a room that I was in, and it was something that I was interested in. And I do suffer with imposter syndrome every now and then. So I'm so grateful for these programs such as Pathways. And I just walked up to this particular president, introduced myself, and nevertheless, he knew exactly who I was. So it just clicked in me, advocate for yourself, tell your story. And that was something that I've always taken into consideration through those mentors and things like that. So
for sure.
As you've thought about kind of the steps throughout your career, you guys have taken a little bit different paths. Like you said, you've been at HBCUs your entire career. Candice, you've been at Wayne State for
16 years.
The majority of your career.
Yes.
But that takes a different approach in how you are being meticulous about making those connections.
Absolutely.
Stepping out to introduce yourself. How is that? Has that been intentional to say, I'm going to stay at HBCUs for this throughout my career to this point, or I'm going to stay at Wayne State throughout my career at this point?
So it's funny you ask that question. Everybody says oh, you're not leaving Wayne State. I will leave Wayne State if the position, the opportunity, the location, there's a fullness of the role. You know, the fullness of the role has to make sense. I love working with our athletic director, Erica Wallace, right now. We are doing some really innovative things. But for me, I like to master something. So every single role that I've had at Wayne State, I want to make sure that I'm the content matter expert, and then I'll move on. And I think seeing the waves of an athletics department and its different iterations has been wildly, I can't even explain it. It's just been such a great opportunity. And the job opportunities come quite often, but I also know the type of institution matters to me. Like I said, I like knowledge, I like learning. We're a Research One institution, I teach, so there's just different facets of it. So the intentionality has been, is it fit?
Right.
Does the fit
It has to make
work?
sense.
And it has to make sense. So I think that's pretty much kind of where I've been with it. And I love Detroit. I'm a Detroit girl.
That's how I am. I'm a Southern girl.
I'm a Detroit girl. So anytime I can stay there, that's what I'm probably going to do.
So we have these visions. I know for me, just early on in my career, I had these timelines set. Oh, by this time I wanted to be this. By this age I wanted to be this. I want to only stay here for a few years. What I learned throughout that whole leave from the seat that you're in. Complete the work, finish it where you are, make an impact, leave an impact, and then prepare yourself. So it just has to make sense.
That's
right. I know she's a Detroit girl, I'm a Southern girl. However, I don't know what Utah or Nebraska would look for me. I don't know, but I've learned that just throughout this journey. Leave from the seat that you're in. When my work is done at Tuskegee, I'll know when it's time.
That's right.
How do you know when it's time? Is there, and imagine it's different in every role.
It is. It really is.
If you're an assistant AD, that's a lot different than
Oh,
the seat you're sitting in
absolutely.
right now.
Absolutely.
Is it just a feeling?
I think it's just the feeling, and when I see the impact that I leave on not just student athletes but colleagues around me. So my boss does a great job at preparing me for the next seat. So you can never be too prepared, but hey, it's always those situations that come about. And I mean, like she said, jobs they do come along or whatever, but is that the right job for me? Well,
exactly.
My time is my time, and when it's coming, it's coming. So
I think when you say, how do you know? it has to be like, is your work done, right?
Absolutely.
If I have not changed, grown, if I'm finding myself doing the same, then maybe my work here is done and there needs to be some other innovative aspect that comes in that's not going to be in the form of Candice, and that's okay. I'm a very deeply rooted in my faith, and I know like once I get that nudge that Candice, this might be the opportunity, I have no problems at all taking that, but it has to make sense. I have to feel like that I'm leaving Wayne State better than what I found it. And the individuals that I've brought there that are doing their thing, they feel comfortable moving forward. I think that's how I'll know.
You both pinpointed fit as like
Yes.
the
Oh,
key
yeah.
to figure that next opportunity
Definitely.
out. I imagine some of it is geographic, like you mentioned, that
Yes.
ideally,
yes, for sure.
given your ties. Some of it is values alignment.
Oh, yes.
Some of
Definitely.
it is, you know, some of the core things about the institution itself, whether it's a research institution, maybe it's an HBCU, whatever it may be. What is kind of that checklist for each of you? And how much of it is, how much does it kind of have wiggle room, I guess?
Value, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead. No.
Value is definitely one of mine, the vision and the goals of that institution, and does it align and fit with what my visions and goals are for an athletic department. So it's great to make sure that you go in knowing that, even during an interview process or even when you're talking with the president, identify those values, or my core values, and identify the vision, goals, and the missions of that institution. And if it doesn't align with what I believe in, I'm very big on faith, so I'm going to stand on that. I'm very big on discipline. I'm very big on authenticity. But it has to make sense and just align with my core values.
I think for me, it's location of the institution. I like urban research institutions because I feel like there's a lot of opportunity outside of the institution to kind of implement some change and have an impact. Service is a core value of mine. Understanding the demographics of the university. The world has a breadth of people, and I feel like that's a part of the educational process, is being able to experience that. I know I said, institution type, so obviously the research piece is very big for me. And it's just really about how that institution is positioned wherever they're at. So if it's in Chicago or if it's in LA or wherever it is, I think those things have to align with my vision of being in an urban area. Oftentimes I think, sometimes people say, well, it could be somewhere else. I went to a liberal arts college in middle of Oxford, Ohio. So that's not the issue at all. And I love being in the South. That's not the issue at all. But I think in totality, that institution type and what I can bring to the table and then do in the surrounding community is very important to me.
How would each of you define your core values? And how did you go about, I guess, defining those? Because that strikes me as something a lot of leaders say, and they're very defined once they have them. I'm curious about how you got to that process as well.
Absolutely. Trust, authentic, passion, discipline, and vulnerability for me. Because being a leader and in leadership roles, you do often find yourself in those vulnerable positions because you're always having to tackle and do some things that you just may not be comfortable with. But trust, leadership, and passion, it just all aligns with what my core values are, and definitely my faith. I'm a firm believer in that, but I can't grow if the individuals around me are not, pushing and growing with me, so.
I think for me, it really boils down to purpose. I love getting up and going into work. And I knew early on, if I didn't have that purpose-driven work, I could go hang it up. I could go work at Nordstrom's or something, get a really good discount or something. But no, I absolutely have to do things that are purpose-driven, to echo the sentiments, passion-driven. There are certain things that are non-negotiables for me, but
Absolutely.
if the purpose isn't there, if I'm not adding to the environment, the culture, I can't do it, right? And then I don't show up in the best version of myself. But really that purpose is my main core value when I'm looking in a work setting. Obviously I have other core values, but those have grown and morphed as I've gotten older, as I've seen more things. and I really recognize what I can contribute to this industry. So,
How have you thought about when you're ready? Because you've said, how we've talked about how you can evaluate an opportunity, but how do you personally know that, all right, I feel that I'm ready, and then probably also the affirmation from somebody else.
Absolutely.
Kind of letting you know
Right.
one way or another
Yeah.
that you know what, you are ready.
Right. Ooh, I have that now. I have that around me. You are ready. You can do this. You can do this. Well, I'm going back to make it fit. I mean, make it make sense for me. And it's just the situation that I'm dealing with now. And in my mind, I feel like I'm so ready. Of course, you got this, but I'm ready. This is where I need to be. This is where I belong. Like you say, my work at Tuskegee University, if I come in every day feeling like there's nothing more for me to do, then hey, my work is done at Tuskegee. I've done what I needed to do. So at the next opportunity, it's just, I have, again, resulting to my faith and my gut telling me that I'm ready for this.
I think preparation is a tricky thing, right? And readiness is also tricky. But I think the main thing is to know that you are ready relies on your preparation. So if I look at the totality of my career, I can say I added this in my toolbox, this in my toolbox. I went and furthered my education. I did pathways. I did NACDA Senior Institute. I did, the Advancement Institute with women leaders here. All of those tools prepared me. And my preparation, and then how I made sure that I really poured into those experiences and showed up in my best version, trying to make sure that I soaked everything in, those moments prepared me. So when the call comes,
absolutely,
I'm just putting it into play,
To piggyback off that, I was just on a panel last week at another women leaders convention, and one of the questions that I asked one of the panelists was, how do you know that you're ready? What do we know? Like, we're women of color, and we have a lot just against us just being women of color in leadership. However, we check those boxes. We've done the NACDA Senior Institute, pathways, LI with the NACDA or whatever, but NCAA, I'm sorry, but we go down and check those boxes, and we go through it and say, hey, what else can I do to show you that I am ready for this job? So
we both talked a lot about how you both are getting yourselves ready. How do you think about, this last question, then we'll wrap, how do you think about preparing those behind you?
Behind me.
Now that you're in kind of that senior leadership
I'll tell you a story about that.
Right.
That's funny because when I first got to Tuskegee University, and it was just a coach or whatever, and the coach lacked leadership, lacked guidance, So my boss and I, who had a conversation, I said, well, just give me a year or so, I identified what her weaknesses were, and that I felt like that was hindering her from being the best coach and best version of her. So I didn't realize that I was putting in my skills and leadership into play. It was just something that I have a passion for leadership. And she's now excelling. I mean, she's killing it. But I sat back and watched. I was like, wow, I don't know, I don't want to take the credit for it, but I'm like, I identified that that's what she needed. And I appreciate it because she come to me and say, thank you so much for that, because I never had it. This was her first year as a head coach or whatever. So it was hard. She was finding it hard navigating her way through and I always tell coach, it's a difference in coaching, leading, and managing. So it matters what you do off the court. It's just not about X's and O's. And for that was my way of grooming her and evolving her and, leading her into a direction that she had no idea of. So what that looks like for the individuals coming behind me, at least I know that I left that impact and I inspire her to be better at what she's doing.
Awesome. I think for me, one of the things I love doing is teaching as well. And a lot of people that I have helped in their professional career at one point was a student of mine, a student athlete, a former intern. And I think if I'm not doing that simultaneously while preparing myself for the next role, I'm doing a huge disservice to our industry, right? I don't operate off of I want to be irreplaceable. I want to be replaceable. And it serves no one if the information and the knowledge that I have, if it's not shared with other people. It doesn't matter if I'm the deputy athletics director and I'm working with my admin who is here at Women Leaders. Like, you can know all the things that I'm doing as well as the athletics director, because at some point you will get there. So if you can get these things in your toolbox now, why not do that? And I know it sometimes can be a little bit challenging for people to create space to do that in their day-to-day, but for me, that's happening, right? If I'm meeting with the external team, I might not have tasks to do, but we're gonna spitball some things. We're gonna talk about some things so you can get that different perspective. The other main thing too is, as you are in college athletics specifically, and you can really use this across all sports industries, the teaching piece is huge. In my opinion, we're all educators, right? Now, there is a business aspect of it. There is, that external piece that you have to generate revenue. We understand that. But for individuals that are coming up behind us, I want them to be even more prepared than I was, right? I am fine with, here's a shorter path. This is how you do it, right? I don't get any benefit by saying like, oh no, take the long road. No, how can I shorten that for you? So I'm gonna always do that. I would love to prepare people to take my seat at any moment, because that sharpens me up,
Absolutely.
right? So I think really that mentorship piece, leading down to lead up, is always going to be huge for me.
Yeah.
Non-negotiable.
Creating that trust and creating that vulnerability.
Yes.
Knowing
There we go.
you are admitting that you are replaceable is
Yes.
probably
Oh,
very
absolutely.
difficult to do, but
Yes.
Yeah.
yes, you're creating.
You got to take that ego out. Like,
Exactly.
I think that is the downfall, right? If you operate in ego, that's insecurity. Replace me.
Yes.
Replace me. I'm fine with that, because you are offering something that's going to move the organization forward, and that's what it's rooted in.
Very
Simple.
insightful. Deborah, Candice, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
you.
us.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.